Oops, my heart went.
Fuck. Shit. Bitch, don't ask me who I be on. I'm just tryna hit it with my Gucci on. Netflix and chill, put this movie.
So if this is your first time seeing me, I am Gabrielle. I'm an eco-conscious designer. My brand is called Delikado, and I focus on recycling. So every single piece that I make is one-of-one. Everything is thrifted and then upcycled. For example, this piece behind me right here, it was a vintage cardigan and tank top set, and I just did my own renovations to it and made it like that. I also do pieces from scratch, like vintage scraps, fabrics. Everything that I use is vintage, just to focus on recycling and helping the planet. I made a bunch of thrift flip videos and posted them on social medias, and then people started asking me to make a YouTube. So here I am. This is my second video ever and the first video in my thrift flip series. I'm super excited to go into this and do a lot more thrift flip videos. I don't really want to consider them tutorials because it's kind of impossible to get the exact same outcome that I did. I would just say this is kind of a step-by-step look at exactly how I made this. I guess that's technically a tutorial, but I don't want to call it that. I'm just gonna call these my thrift flip series. So if you guys want to see more, definitely give me a like. The materials I used for this piece include a stretchy cardigan. I specifically like this one because of the rib knitting and the color, and I just like how stretchy it is. Really the main thing that you want to look for is something stretchy, something that's open, preferably buttons. I just like the button look. Maybe if it's just like an open cardigan, that would be fine too. I also suggest having a dress form, but if you don't have a dress form, you can just drape it on your own body. I just like using dress forms because I just think it's so much easier. This dress form right here was only like $30 something on Amazon. This one, which is my favorite one, this is actually a really high quality dress form. You can't really see it right now, but I like the cloth ones. I could do a little tour on them. I could talk about them forever. This one though, like, she's a beast, and I got her for like literally $10 at a thrift store. And just to put into perspective, like, thrifting is the way to go. Next thing I used are metal buckles. You can also get these on Amazon, but I would just suggest using whatever you have at home. I've used like keychain holders before. I've used pieces from earrings. You know, you can just really find whatever you have. So the next thing I use is a serger and my standard sewing machine. I actually have 4 sewing machines. I could definitely talk a storm about these sewing machines and talk about pros and cons. I'm thinking about making that another video as well. If you don't have a zigzag stitch feature on your sewing machine or a serger, you can just double stitch it or fold it. Just take your own initiative and run with it, be creative. So yeah, let's get into the tutorial. That's not a tutorial. So I started out with a stretchy cardigan. I specifically like this one because of the rib knit details and the color. After I made sure it was nice and flat, I then measured how long I wanted it to be. So for this specific look, I wanted it to be even shorter than a typical crop top. I wanted you to still be able to see the tube top underneath. So I put it at about 11 inches from the top. Then I put the ruler across to make the straight line. You want to make sure that under the armpits, you're measuring the same length on both sides. Also, I'm using a water-soluble fabric pen for this one, but yeah, that's just me straightening up the line and then cutting it. So I'm actually not accounting for seam allowance because I'm going to be using a contrast fabric to create the hem. If you don't want to use another fabric, I do suggest you do about 1/2 inch of seam allowance depending on what kind of hem you want for the top. And also keep in mind that we're hemming the tube top as well. So here I've added a crop tank that fits me really well. You want to make sure that it's the exact type of stretch as the fabric that you're using, and this is just me tracing the outline. Now I'm just trying to figure out exactly what kind of shape I want it to be and if I want to keep the bottom ruffly part. So I'm just kind of moving the ruler around and deciding what kind of shape I want to make it. So now I'm just drawing a straight line using the tank top outline as a reference. So I didn't do seam allowance here because I want it to actually be even smaller than the tank top to create that space in the middle. And I think I actually make it even smaller than it is right now. So then I just flip it so that the two front sides are facing each other, and now I'm gonna sew. I always make sure to pin when I'm working with fabrics that move a lot like this, just to avoid any complications. So here I'm just using a simple single needle stitch. It's just a temporary hold. Alright, so after I cut and sewed, this is how it looks on my dress form. Again, if you don't have a dress form, you can always drape this on your body, and I decided to keep the ruffles, as you can see, and this is where you can really see exactly how the piece is gonna look. As you can see, I originally thought about using a circular metal piece, so if you have something circular like a keychain holder or something, that could be a cool thing to use right here. So this is me here listening to Ali and AJ while I adjust the sides. I didn't show this part on camera, but the dress form is actually a couple inches bigger in the bust and the waist than I am, so I am just adjusting it to my size. And I just do that by flipping it inside out and then sewing a stitch across how small I want it to be. Here it is after I sewed that, and I'm just gonna try this on and make sure that it fits right before I do the serger. After I try it on, I'm just cutting out the excess fabric so that it's not super bulky when I run it through my serger. And if you don't have a serger, you can always just use a zigzag stitch for this part, but this is just me running it through my serger. So now that I have the shape that I want, I am just lining it up with the metal hardware. This is just me looking at the excess fabric that I have and seeing if I want to actually use that for this part, but I instead decided to go with this really pretty vintage tie. Also, I decided to save that excess fabric for the straps. This is just me folding it and holding it up to see how long I need it to be and what shape it needs to be. Another thing to remember when you're determining the space that you're going to put between here is that the tube top actually has to stay up, so I would make it as tight as possible. So this tie was actually the same shape and size all the way through, which made it a lot easier to measure. So after I figured out exactly what size I needed to be, then I cut it out. I ended up cutting 3 2x3 inch rectangles. So I did this next step off camera, but this kind of shows exactly what I did. I just folded it hot dog style, then hamburger, and then so this is what it looks like after I folded it like that and then just sewed the ends. Next, I just aligned it to where the buttons and the buttonholes were. It just happened to align perfectly. So instead of pinning it, I used the buttons as a reference to where I'm going to sew each piece, and I just did them one at a time, and this is just me sewing it all together. After running the top raw hem through a serger, I am now just folding it 1/4 inch and creating a hem. If you do not have a serger, you can use a zigzag stitch here. And if you don't have a zigzag stitch, you could just probably fold it twice. The goal is to make sure that the raw hem doesn't come undone, so just tucking it away nicely will prevent that. This is the tube top by itself. I still felt like it needed a little bit more support, so I took some of the excess fabric, and now I'm going to create a strap from it. Now I'm cutting the fabric out into 3 even rectangles. I believe I made them about 1 inch in width, and I'm going to sew them all together to create the length that I need. Next, you just fold the fabric like so. The goal is to tuck in all the raw hem so that it's not out. I believe I filmed this before I got wonder clips, which I now prefer way more over traditional pins, but pins are all I had, so you just want to pin it in place so that the fabric doesn't move around too much. I just like the wonder clips. I just like those because they don't move the fabric around too much the way that pins do, and they're just a lot more simple and safe because I have poked myself a fair share of times with these pins. Now I'm just repeating the process until I have the whole strip folded and pinned. Now I'm just sewing it all in place. And there she is, the finished top with straps. The straps are kind of optional if the tube top actually stays up by itself, but that's 100% your choice. I had a lot more of that tie fabric left, so I decided to use that to finish the hem here. As you can see, I am planning to sew the hem to the tie and then fold it over like so. You'll see exactly how I do this in a second. After cutting the exact length I needed for the hem, I then began pinning it like so. Alright, so this is just me sewing exactly where I pinned it, and now you can see I am going to tuck away that raw hem and also fold in the corner. So I wanted to show this part because I totally messed up here and I don't want you to do the same thing. So after I actually already sewed the hem, I realized that the hem was way too wide and I needed to actually make it a little bit smaller right under the armpit area. So now I'm tailoring it after I've already had to hem it. So I would definitely suggest doing this part before the hem so the hem looks a little bit more even, but I didn't have a choice because I already hemmed it. Now I'm aligning the two sides to make sure that they're even. I also wanted to note that this sweater is actually a size medium, which is why the top is a little bit wide on me, because the tube top part that I made is an extra small. After stitching those two parts together, the sweater is done, and this is the final tube top and sweater set. I'm super happy with how it turned out. Definitely let me know what you guys think about it. My personal critiques would probably be that I would just make sure that I tailored it before I added the hem and also used a stitch that was the same color as my fabric, which I didn't have, but that would have just made it a little bit more cleaner and professional. Alright, so that was it for the video. Thank you so much for sticking all the way to the end. Thank you if you are a returning subscriber and you are watching my video. Thank you so much. I really didn't think I would even have 10 subscribers within the first video. So thank you. Every single subscriber counts, every single like counts. And if you want to see more of these, definitely just hit me with a like. That's all it takes to keep me motivated and keep me wanting to make more videos, more content, and it would really mean the world to me. And if you want to see more, subscribe. Delikado out!